Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really critical idea in conservation, the idea that some of the tiniest places on Earth actually hold the biggest responsibility for protecting life. And as you're about to see, India is right on the front lines of this global fight. So let me ask you a question. What if I told you that just a tiny fraction of the Earth's land, like 2.3%, held the key to the survival of over half of all life on the planet? It sounds kind of impossible, right? But that's the stunning reality of what scientists call biodiversity hotspots, and figuring them out has never been more urgent. Yeah, 50%. Think about that for a second. A staggering half of the world's plant species are all packed into these super small, super critical areas. So, what exactly makes a place a hotspot? And why did anyone even come up with this idea in the first place? So what does it actually take for a region to get this official title of a biodiversity hotspot? Well, it's a lot more than just being a place with a ton of animals. The term was actually created for a really strategic reason, to help solve the problem of where we should focus our limited conservation money and effort to get the biggest bang for our buck. This whole idea came from an ecologist, Norman Myers, way back in 1988. He wanted to pinpoint the places on the planet that were the most biologically rich, but also the most threatened. You see the logic? It's a simple but really powerful idea that still guides conservation work today. Focus our resources where they can save the most species from the brink. Now, to get this hotspot label, a place has to pass two incredibly strict tests. First, it has to be irreplaceable. That means it must have at least 1,500 plant species that are found absolutely nowhere else on Earth. That's called endemism. And second, it has to be in immediate danger, having already lost at least 70% of its original habitat. So it has to be totally unique and under serious threat. And these really strict rules, well, they bring us right to India. As a megadiverse country, it finds itself on the absolute front lines in the battle to protect these incredibly precious zones. Okay, get this. Out of the 35 biodiversity hotspots that have been identified across the entire globe, a remarkable 4 of them are located right within India's borders. So let's take a closer look at each one. All right, our first stop is the Western Ghats. This is this magnificent mountain range that runs all the way down India's southwestern coast. And this place, it's a treasure trove, just teeming with life you can't find anywhere else. I mean, this region is the perfect example of what makes a hotspot so special. It has over 3,000 plant species that exist only here. It's home to these iconic animals like the Lion-tailed Macaque, and it's even where the wild ancestors of crops we use every day, like black pepper, first came from. But here's where it gets really serious, and it's a real wake-up call. Because of immense pressure from population and development, just look at this chart. Only 6.8% of the Western Ghats' original pristine habitat is left. That tiny little sliver is all that remains, which makes protecting it absolutely critically important. But the Western Ghats are just one part of this bigger story. India's other hotspots cover completely different landscapes, from the highest mountains on Earth all the way to remote tropical islands. So first you have the Himalayas, and this isn't just one single environment. The huge change in altitude creates everything from lush grasslands to bare alpine meadows. And all that variety provides a safe haven for 163 globally threatened species, like the super elusive snow leopard, the red panda, and the powerful one-horned rhino. Then you have the Indo-Burma region. This is a massive hotspot that covers northeastern India and a big chunk of Southeast Asia. And while it's a place of unbelievable biological richness, it's facing an extreme threat from super fast resource exploitation for things like farming and timber. It's actually one of the most endangered hotspots on the entire planet. And finally, there's the Sundaland hotspot. Now, this region stretches all across Southeast Asia, but India's crucial piece of the puzzle is the Nicobar Islands, which connects its unique biodiversity to that whole wider area. And this is where the global stakes get even higher. As you can see here, 2 of India's hotspots, the Western Ghats and Indo-Burma, are considered among the hottest of the hot. What that means is they aren't just important, they are among the most biologically rich and critically endangered places on the entire planet. So, the strategy seems simple then, right? Just pour all our conservation money and effort into these hotspots? Well, like with most things in science, the real story, it's a bit more complicated than that. And that's where conservationists bring in this other idea called cold spots. As this shows, these are areas that have lower overall diversity, but they're still highly threatened, and they are super important because a cold spot might be the only place in the entire world to find one particular rare or uniquely adapted species. And that leaves us with the central challenge, really the toughest question facing conservationists today. With limited time, limited money, and limited resources, how do we choose what to save? These difficult decisions about where to focus our efforts, on hotspots, cold spots, or somewhere in between, have never been more critical for the future of life on our planet.